I never imagined my life would unravel like this. One moment, I was a devoted husband and father, planning a heartfelt surprise for my wife. The next, I was staring at a reality so painful, so incomprehensible, that I felt like I was watching someone else's life fall apart instead of my own. It all started with what seemed like a harmless idea. Sheila, my wife, had been away on a business trip for the past 4 days. It wasn't unusual. She worked in corporate sales and often traveled for conferences or client meetings. She had been doing this for years, and I had never questioned it. We had been together for a decade, married for 8, and in all that time I trusted her completely. Maybe I was naive. The kids missed her. I missed her. And that's when I thought of the perfect surprise. Why not take a spontaneous trip to see her? I imagined showing up at her hotel, knocking on her door, and seeing the joy on her face when she realized we were there. It was supposed to be a beautiful, heartfelt moment, a reminder of how much we loved her. I booked the tickets without telling her. The excitement in the kids' eyes was enough to push away the small, nagging feeling in the back of my mind. A feeling I didn't understand at the time but would later recognize as my subconscious warning me. The flight was uneventful. The kids were thrilled, chattering about how much fun we'd have surprising Mommy. I let myself believe this would be a memory we'd cherish forever. When we landed, I checked into the same hotel Sheila had told me she was staying at. I made sure the kids were settled, then decided to head to the restaurant. I knew she'd probably be out for dinner, networking with colleagues. I wanted to see if I could casually spot her, maybe gauge her reaction from afar before revealing the surprise. It was supposed to be lighthearted, a fun game before the real reveal. I held my daughter's hand as we walked into the dimly lit hotel restaurant. My son skipped ahead, excited, looking around for his mom. I scanned the room, my heart pounding slightly in anticipation. And then I saw her. At first, I was just relieved. There she was, sitting at a table near the window, looking as radiant as ever. But then my eyes drifted to the man sitting across from her. He was leaning in, laughing, his hand resting a little too comfortably on her arm. She wasn't pulling away. No. She was smiling, leaning toward him like he was the most interesting man in the world. She looked happy. More than happy. My stomach twisted. I froze in place, gripping my daughter's hand a little too tightly. She looked up at me, confused. Daddy. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. Sheila was looking at this man the way she used to look at me. My son's voice broke through the buzzing in my ears. Hey, it's Mommy. I acted on instinct. I pulled both kids back, my heart slamming against my ribs. Wait, I said, my voice sounding foreign even to myself. Let's surprise her later. But, I forced a smile. Trust me, it'll be better that way. I turned them around, guiding them back toward the elevator before they could see what I was seeing. Before they could see their mother touching another man's hand. Before they could see her lips part in a way that wasn't meant for me. Before they could see my entire world shatter into 1,000 unrecognizable pieces. I didn't know what was worse, the betrayal itself or the fact that she had no idea we were here. We were supposed to be the surprise. Instead, she was the one surprising me. I don't know how I made it back to the hotel room without collapsing. My hands were shaking as I fumbled with the key card. My thoughts racing so fast that I couldn't hold onto a single one. Sheila, my wife, the mother of my children, sitting across from another man, her hand grazing his like it belonged there, laughing at something he said, the kind of laugh that used to be reserved for me. I wanted to believe it was nothing, a colleague, a business dinner, but I wasn't stupid. Not after the way she smiled at him. Not after the way he touched her wrist, casual, easy, familiar, and certainly not after the way she had lied to me. I still had her last text message pulled up on my phone. Sheila. Hey babe, just got back to my room. Exhausted from meetings all day. Gonna shower and crash early. Love you. I read it over and over as I stood in the middle of the room, the words blurring together. Meetings all day. She wasn't in her room. She was downstairs, having dinner with him. I could hear my kids getting ready for bed behind me, laughing as they jumped onto the mattress. They had no idea. No idea that their world, our world, was crumbling right in front of them. And that was when it hit me. I had two choices. I could go downstairs right now, storm up to that table, and confront her in front of everyone. Cause a scene. Demand answers. Or I could wait. Wait and see just how deep this betrayal went. I sat on the edge of the bed, my leg bouncing, my hands clenched into fists. The air in the room felt too thick. Then I made my decision. I grabbed my phone, opened up the hotel's website, and checked something I hadn't thought to check before. The room layout. She had told me she was staying in a standard queen room, one bed, nothing fancy. But as I scrolled through the available rooms, something caught my eye. The executive suite. Bigger. More luxurious. Designed for couples. I stared at the screen, my stomach twisting. I had to know. Without thinking, I called the front desk. "Hi," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I need to confirm my wife's room number. She checked in earlier this week. Sheila Thompson." The receptionist hesitated. "I'm sorry, sir, but we can't give out that information." I swallowed hard. "I understand. Can you tell me if she's still in the same room she checked into?" A pause. Then, "Mrs. Thompson upgraded to an executive suite upon arrival." I felt like the floor had been pulled out from under me. My wife had lied about where she was staying. My wife had lied about what she was doing. And now I had no doubt. She was lying about who she was with. I ended the call and just sat there, staring at the wall. I had come here to surprise her. Instead, I had walked straight into a nightmare. I didn't sleep that night. I laid there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening to my kids' soft breathing as they slept peacefully beside me. They had no idea what had just happened. No idea that the foundation of their family was crumbling beneath them. I wanted to protect them from this, from the truth. But deep down, I knew I couldn't protect them from a lie that was already unraveling. My mind replayed every detail from earlier. Sheila's laugh, the way she leaned in toward that man. The way she lied about being in her room when she was actually with him. And then there was the hotel upgrade. The executive suite. She had never mentioned it. Never gave me a single reason to suspect that she wasn't where she said she'd be. But I knew what that meant. A bigger bed. A romantic setting. It wasn't a room you booked for a solo business trip. She hadn't just been lying to me. She had been planning this. At some point, she had made the conscious decision to book that suite, to share it with someone else. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a moment of weakness. This was deliberate. And now I had to decide what to do next. I grabbed my phone and checked the time. 2:37 a.m. My heart pounded in my chest as I scrolled through our messages. Should I call her? Ask her where she was? See if she'd lie to me again? My finger hovered over her contact. But I stopped myself. No, not yet. I needed proof. If I confronted her now, she'd have an excuse. She'd gaslight me, twist the story, make me feel like I was imagining things. I had seen it happen to other men. Guys who thought they caught their wives cheating, only to be convinced that it was all in their heads. I wasn't going to be that guy. So, I did something I never thought I'd have to do. I left the room. The hotel hallway was eerily silent as I made my way toward the executive suite section. My palms were sweaty, my breath uneven. Every step felt heavier than the last. I didn't know what I was expecting to find. Maybe I just needed to see it with my own eyes. As I reached the end of the hall, I spotted her room number. My hands clenched into fists. I hesitated for a moment, standing outside the door, listening. Silence. Then a faint laugh, muffled, but undeniably hers. And then a man's voice, low, intimate. I felt something inside me snap. I had my answer. Could have knocked. I could have kicked the damn door down. But I didn't. I turned around and walked away. Because now it wasn't just about catching her. It was about making her regret ever thinking she could do this to me. I walked back to my room in a daze, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. My entire body felt cold, like I had been standing in a blizzard with no coat. I had my answer. I had heard her laugh. I had heard him. I could still turn back, knock on that door, walk in and force her to look me in the eye. But what good would that do? She would lie, scramble for excuses, twist everything into something that made me feel like I was the problem. I had seen it happen before, to other men, to other marriages that fell apart. No, I needed more. I needed something she couldn't deny. By the time I slipped back into my hotel room, my hands were steady again. My kids were still sleeping soundly, their faces peaceful. Killed me, knowing that their world was about to change in a way they couldn't understand. I lay on my bed, staring at the ceiling, formulating a plan. Step 1. Find out who he was. I knew nothing about this man, except that Sheila was comfortable with him. Too comfortable. Was he a coworker? A long-time affair partner? Someone new? I had to know. I scrolled through Sheila's social media, looking for clues. She rarely posted anything personal, but she had tagged a few colleagues in past work events. I clicked through, searching for any familiar faces. Then I found him, Aaron Mitchell. I clicked on his profile, my stomach twisting. He worked in the same industry as Sheila. Sales executive. Married, or at least he had been. His last public post was over a year ago, pictures of him and his wife on vacation. But something felt off. I checked the comments. No mention of his wife. No recent photos of them together. Had Sheila been the reason his marriage ended? I felt sick. Step 2. Confirm the affair. I needed to be sure. Hearing their voices wasn't enough. I needed proof. I knew what I had to do next. I set my alarm for 5 a.m. If Sheila had been spending the night in that suite, she would have to leave at some point, either to freshen up, grab coffee, or check in with her team. And when she did, I'd be ready. The alarm jolted me awake. My kids were still sleeping. I moved quietly, slipping on my shoes and stepping into the hallway before my mind could tell me to stop. The corridor was empty. The hotel was quiet, save for the faint hum of cleaning carts being rolled down the hall. Then her door opened. I ducked back behind a column, heart hammering. Sheila stepped out, dressed in the same outfit she had been wearing at dinner. Her hair was messy. She hadn't gone back to her room at all. And then Aaron followed. They didn't kiss. They didn't touch. But the way they looked at each other told me everything. They spoke briefly, too low for me to hear. Then he squeezed her arm, and she smiled. I clenched my fists. She turned and walked away, heading toward the elevators. He lingered for a moment, stretching, before disappearing back into the room. I had all the proof I needed. Sheila had just walked out of another man's hotel room. The woman I had loved for 10 years. The mother of my children. And she had no idea that her real surprise was yet to come. I stood there, hidden behind the column, my pulse thundering in my ears as I watched my wife disappear into the elevator. The doors slid shut, and just like that, she was gone. Walking away like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just spent the night in another man's hotel room. Like she wasn't about to go back to her husband and children and pretend that everything was fine. I exhaled slowly, trying to keep my rage in check. Now wasn't the time to explode. Now was the time to be smart. I took a few steadying breaths, then turned back toward my room. My kids were still asleep when I stepped inside, their small bodies curled up under the hotel blankets. A fresh wave of pain hit me. How could she do this? To them? I wasn't just a husband being cheated on, I was a father. And what she had done? It wasn't just betrayal. It was abandonment. Step 1. Let her dig her own grave. Sheila had no idea we were here. No idea that I had seen her with Aaron. That I had watched her walk out of his room at dawn. And I was going to keep it that way for now. I sent her a casual text, my hands steady as I typed. Me morning, babe. Hope you slept well. Kids and I are going to grab breakfast. Love you. I stared at the message after I sent it, disgusted by how easy it was to play along. Just like she had been doing to me. Not even a minute later, my phone buzzed. Sheila. Ah, morning love. I passed out so early last night. Just woke up. About to get ready for my meetings. Miss you. I almost laughed. She was still lying. Even after sneaking out of another man's room. Even after spending the night wrapped in his sheets. She still had the audacity to text me like nothing happened. I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to stay calm. Step 2. Gather more proof. Catching her leaving his room was one thing, but I needed more. Something undeniable. Something she couldn't gaslight me out of. I waited a few minutes before stepping back into the hallway. Aaron's door was still shut. No sign of movement. I took out my phone and snapped a quick picture of his room number. Then, I made my way downstairs to the hotel lobby. I walked up to the front desk, forcing a friendly smile. "Hey, my wife is staying here for a conference. I wanted to send her something special. Can you confirm which room Sheila Thompson is in?" The receptionist hesitated. "I'm sorry, sir, but we can't give out that information." I expected that, but I wasn't leaving empty-handed. "Oh, of course. Totally understand," I said, chuckling like it was no big deal. "I just wanted to make sure she's still in the same suite she checked into. I'd hate to send flowers to the wrong place." The receptionist relaxed a little. "Oh, yes. She's still in the executive suite she upgraded to on arrival." I nodded, my stomach churning. I already knew that, but hearing it confirmed, that was another level of betrayal. She booked that suite for them, for their affair. I thanked the receptionist and walked away, every step feeling heavier than the last. I needed to get out of here. Step 3. The escape plan. I made my way back to our room, my mind racing. I couldn't confront her yet. Not here. Not with the kids around. I had to get them out first. I gently shook my son's shoulder. "Hey, bud," I said softly. "Wake up. We're going home." He blinked up at me sleepily. "What? What about Mommy?" "We'll see Mommy later," I lied. "But right now I need you to be my big helper, okay? Can you do that for me?" He nodded, rubbing his eyes. I packed our bags as quickly and quietly as I could, my heart hammering in my chest. By the time Sheila realized we were here, we'd already be gone. And when she called me, confused, wondering where we were, that's when I dropped the bomb. I moved quickly but carefully, stuffing our clothes into our suitcases while my kids groggily tried to wake up. My hands shook slightly, but I couldn't let them see how rattled I was. "Not yet." "Daddy, why are we leaving?" my daughter asked, rubbing her tired eyes. I forced a smile. "We're just going to head home early, sweetheart. I think Mommy's really busy with work, and I don't want to disturb her." Tasted bitter coming out of my mouth. A half-truth wrapped in a lie. But I couldn't tell them what was really happening. Not now. By the time I finished packing, the sun had fully risen, casting golden light through the window. The city below was already bustling, completely unaware that my world had been shattered overnight. I checked the time. 7:15 a.m. Sheila would be heading to her so-called meetings soon. I had to get out before she realized anything. "Come on, guys," I said, hoisting the suitcases. "Let's go grab some breakfast on the way to the airport." They didn't argue, just yawned and followed me into the hallway, their little hands gripping mine. As we stepped onto the elevator, I felt a strange, eerie calm wash over me, like my body had finally accepted what my heart refused to. My marriage was over. By the time we got to the airport, I had turned my phone off. I didn't want to risk Sheila calling and throwing me off. I didn't want to hear her voice. Not yet. The kids were distracted by a cartoon playing on a tablet while we waited for our flight, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. I watched them, feeling a deep, suffocating sadness settle into my chest. They had no idea that when we got home, everything would be different. Would I tell them? When would I tell them? How do you tell your children that the person they love most in the world betrayed their family? I had no answers, only an aching emptiness where love used to be. We landed back home a few hours later. The moment I turned my phone on, it exploded with notifications. Sheila, 10 missed calls, 5 messages. "Hey babe, just finished my meetings. Call me when you can. Love you. Are you okay?" I tried calling a few times. "Babe, the kids aren't answering either. Where are you? Call me, now." I stared at the messages, my jaw tightening. She was starting to panic. She didn't know that I had seen her. She had spent the night with another man, woken up in his arms, and still texted me like I was the fool. I took a deep breath and called her. She answered on the first ring. "Oh my God! Where are you?" she practically shrieked. I was freaking out. "Why aren't you at home?" I smiled coldly, though she couldn't see it. "We're home, Sheila. We were never supposed to be gone." Silence. I could almost hear the gears in her head turning, trying to make sense of what I just said. What?" she stammered. "We flew out to surprise you, Sheila," I said slowly, deliberately. "The kids and I wanted to spend the weekend with you. We stayed at your hotel. We saw you at dinner. We saw you leave his room this morning." The silence stretched so long I thought she had hung up. Then, a sharp breath. "Babe, whatever you think you saw, it's not what it looks like." I laughed. Actually laughed. "Sheila, I literally stood outside his door and heard you laughing with him. I saw you leave together. You lied. You upgraded your room for him. You weren't in meetings. You were in his bed." Her breath hitched. I can explain. You don't need to." I cut in, my voice eerily calm. "I already know everything." A choked sob. "Please, just let me." "No." I exhaled, shaking my head even though she couldn't see me. "I'm not going to argue with you, Sheila. I just needed to hear you lie one last time before I tell you this. We're done." She broke then, sobbing into the phone. But for the first time in 10 years I didn't feel bad for her. Not anymore. Her sobs filled the silence between us, but they didn't stir anything inside me. No anger, no sadness, no sympathy, just emptiness. "Sheila," I said, my voice cold and steady. "Save the tears. You weren't crying last night when you were with him." She sucked in a breath, choking on her own emotions. I was drunk," she stammered. "I wasn't thinking straight. I closed my eyes, resisting the urge to laugh at the pathetic excuse. "You weren't thinking straight?" I repeated. "You booked an executive suite before you even arrived. You planned this." No, it's not like that," she cried. I saw you." I cut in. "I saw the way you touched him at dinner. I saw the way he looked at you when you left his room in the morning. Do you know what I didn't see? Regret." She went silent. That was the moment she realized. She had nothing left to say. No excuses. No lies. Nothing could undo the truth I had already witnessed. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she whispered, "Please, just let me come home. Let's talk about this." The kids are fine," I interrupted. "They don't need a mother who sneaks out of another man's bed and then lies about it to their father." A choked sob. "Don't do this." I clenched my jaw, my patience wearing thin. "I already did. I took the kids and left. Sheila, you lost your family the moment you chose him over us." I could hear her shaking breaths, the sheer panic creeping into her voice. She thought she could smooth this over. She thought I'd listen, forgive, pretend this never happened. But she was wrong. "What do you want me to say?" she finally whispered. "That I'm sorry? That I made a mistake? That it didn't mean anything?" I exhaled slowly. "It meant enough for you to destroy everything we built." Sheila started to speak again, but I didn't want to hear it. I hung up. I sat there for a long time, staring at my phone. My hands were steady. My heart wasn't racing anymore. It was over. The moment I had always feared. Losing my wife, breaking our family apart. It had already happened. But the strangest part? I felt relief. For the first time in years, I wasn't wondering where Sheila was. I wasn't questioning if she loved me. I wasn't holding on to a marriage that was only real in my head. The weight was gone. And in its place, clarity. She had made her choice. Now it was my turn to make mine. And I wasn't going to waste another second pretending to be the fool. Tomorrow I'd call a lawyer. By the time Sheila came home, she'd find nothing waiting for her. No husband, no family, just the consequences of her own actions. The morning after I hung up on Sheila, I woke up feeling lighter. It was strange. For 10 years, my marriage had been my world, the foundation of everything I built. And yet, now that it was gone, I didn't feel as broken as I expected. I felt free. I spent the morning with my kids, making pancakes in the kitchen. We laughed as my son got batter all over the counter, and my daughter proudly announced that her pancake looked like a dinosaur. For the first time in months, I wasn't distracted. I wasn't waiting for a call or checking my wife's location or wondering if she was being honest. I was just here, present, in the moment, and that's when I realized Sheila hadn't been the glue holding our family together. Later that day, she finally showed up. I heard the car door slam before I saw her. I stayed inside, watching from the window as she rushed up to the front porch, her eyes red and puffy. She looked panicked, like a woman who knew she had lost everything but hadn't quite accepted it yet. I opened the door before she could knock. She stood there, searching my face for something. Forgiveness, maybe, hope, but I had none left to give. I messed up, she whispered. I didn't respond. She swallowed hard. I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose our family. I sighed, leaning against the doorframe. You lost us the moment you decided we weren't enough. Her lip trembled. Please? Can't we fix this? I looked past her, toward the empty street. There was nothing here for her anymore. You broke it, Sheila. I shook my head. I'm not spending the rest of my life trying to fix something that you didn't care about enough to protect. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I love you. I met her eyes. No, you don't. Because if she had loved me, truly loved me, she never would have put me in this position. There was nothing left to say. I stepped back and shut the door. She didn't knock again. The days turned into weeks, and slowly, the pain faded. Sheila fought the divorce at first, begged for counseling, pleaded for a second chance. But I wasn't interested in rebuilding something that she had set on fire. I focused on my kids, on work, on myself. And you know what? Life got better. I laughed more. I slept better. The constant anxiety that had been lingering in the background for years, gone. One afternoon, I took my kids to the park, sitting on a bench as I watched them play. The sun was warm on my skin, the breeze light and cool. For the first time in a long, long time, I was happy. Not because I found someone new, not because I got revenge, but because I chose peace. I chose me, and that was the best decision I had ever made.